past a pile of junk and think, that's all it is, just trash? What if I told you that same trash could become the most beautiful part of your garden? Today, we're not just reusing, we're rebuilding. Not just saving waste, but creating wonder. Welcome to Modhouse DIY, where simple things find new meaning. In this video, we're diving into DIY trash garden ideas that are not only budget-friendly, but powerful enough to transform any space into something special. We've included timestamps so you can jump straight to the idea that fits your vision best. If you have questions or your own version to share, leave a comment. Let's build together. You might not know me. I might just be another voice online. But every video here is built with care, from our tiny home, one idea at a time. A like, a comment, a subscribe. They don't just help the channel, they help keep a small dream alive. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for making space for stories like mine. In a quiet corner of a modest backyard, sunlight spills softly across terracotta pots and freshly watered herbs. Yet it's not just the plants that steal your breath, but the wall behind them, a mosaic of reused bottles, suspended like a floating curtain of light. Some are emerald green, some clear like morning dew, others painted in joyful shades of yellow, pink, and mint. Each one once discarded, now reborn into beauty, whispering stories of lemonade afternoons and dinners once shared. The bottles are tied with wire to a sturdy wooden frame, a DIY divider that doesn't block the view, only softens it. With each passing hour, the light changes. Morning brings cool blue reflections onto the patio stones, while late afternoon floods the space with warm amber and soft shadows that sway as the breeze moves the glass. You can hear a faint clink now and then, like a wind chime's distant sigh. It's not just art, it's shade, it's privacy, it's poetry made practical. The pastel-painted bottle wall in the second frame shows another variation. Vibrant and playful, structured like stacked rows of candy-colored guards. The bottles aren't just visual, they protect from wind, let vines creep between their shapes, and bring joy to an otherwise plain fence. In the third corner, the bottles are arranged inside wooden grids like a stained glass window sculpted from waste. When sunlight passes through, the floor becomes a patchwork of color, green, blue, orange, alive, ever-changing. The gardener, hands deep in a fern pot, hardly notices the magic her hands have made. These aren't just decorations. They're proof that trash has a second chapter, and that beauty is often hiding in the very things we throw away. If you've ever wanted to make your garden not only greener but also more you, start here. Collect, clean, and imagine. Let color fall where it never did before. There's a quiet kind of genius in reimagining what we throw away. In this tiny slice of backyard serenity, oil drums, once forgotten and rusting in some workshop corner, rise again, not as waste, but as vessels of life. Along the back fence, 3 vibrant towers stand tall. Stacked in cheerful layers of turquoise, coral, and lemon yellow, each drum has been lovingly cut, hollowed, and painted by hand. Their rough edges now frame waterfalls of blossoms. Purple petunias tumble out like velvet curtains, red geraniums glow under sunlight, and snowy white lobelia spills gently toward the soil. Nearby, a watering can leans into the scene like an old friend. On the ground, garden tools rest against the wood, ready for tomorrow's tending. It's a garden that doesn't brag, but invites you in with color, with character, and with quiet confidence. In another view beneath a bamboo pergola, a single drum hangs horizontally, suspended by heavy iron chains. Inside it, nature cascades downward, nasturtiums trail like flame, ivy winds playfully between blooms, and the gardener, perched on a step stool, waters them as if tucking each stem in for a restful afternoon. The light shifts through the leaves above, and everything glows just right. And in the side yard, simple, shadowed, and real, a stair of two whitewashed half-drums blooms wildly with calendula, snapdragons, and sweet verbena. The paint is scuffed, the wood is aged, and it only makes the scene more honest. Bees drift lazily from flower to flower, and ivy curls along the fence like a frame around a painting. These towers may not speak, but they show us, loud and clear, that transformation is possible. That with a little effort, a little paint, and a touch of patience, something once industrial can bloom into something truly beautiful. So if you have an old drum, don't hide it. Turn it into a stage for life. Let it sing in petals and vines. Sometimes, beauty begins with what's broken. Here, in the dappled morning quiet, the garden is not guarded by pickets or concrete, but by something gentler. Stretched across wooden frames or woven low beside a stone path, old umbrella ribs, once bent by storms or abandoned in closets, have found their second chance. In one corner, the skeletons of lace umbrellas fan out like vintage sunbursts. Their delicate mesh still catches the light, their spokes casting shadows that shift with the breeze. Tomatoes rest in a blue crate at their base, freshly picked. Beyond them, the tall heads of sunflowers bow and nod in silent approval. These aren't just umbrella parts anymore. They're window panes for nature's theater, letting sunlight paint soft patterns on the lawn while vines slowly climb their frame. On another side of the garden, black umbrellas stand tall and proud, mounted on wooden stakes. Their deep fabric forms a rhythmic silhouette against the morning sky, part shade, part sculpture. Behind them, sweet peas curl upward, threading their way through spokes and shadows. Tools and baskets sit nearby, not arranged for show but from real work. This is a space that's used and loved. And further down the path, nestled against the wall of a home, a scalloped low fence made from umbrella ribs winds alongside nasturtiums and sprays of baby's breath. Painted in soft sage and white, the metal glints in the sun. The gentle arc of the structure mimics the curve of the flowers it holds, and under the fig tree's shadow, a dog sleeps soundly, because peace lives here. This is not a fence of barriers. It's a fence of invitation, light, air, and a whisper of possibility. And perhaps the real lesson is this: when we stop seeing broken things as useless, we begin to create spaces that are not only functional, but filled with poetry. As the last golden thread of daylight slips behind the trees, the garden begins to breathe differently. It doesn't darken, it glows. And the source of that glow? Trash, once. Beauty, now. Upcycled bottles hang like stars from the wooden beams above. Each one, carefully cut, shaped, and softened with heat or care, is transformed into a lantern that knows how to speak in silence. Some flicker amber like fireflies caught mid-laugh. Others, in cool tones of blue and violet, echo the softness of dusk itself. In one corner, a narrow pergola corridor is strung with glowing lanterns made from repurposed plastic. They dangle in varying heights, their uneven edges diffusing the warm light within. The shadows dance gently across the path. An old chair with a plaid cushion waits nearby, and beside it, a stack of garden tools leans without urgency. Everything feels still but not frozen, as if the garden is holding its breath in admiration. Elsewhere, under a flower-filled pergola, bottles shaped like layered petals cluster together in radiant chandeliers. Seen from above, they resemble glowing grapes or clusters of blooming light. Below them, a garden table holds a cup of coffee, a few worn magazines, and a terracotta pot spilling over with impatience. It is an ordinary moment made magical simply by the light of what others once threw away. And in another view, a couple sits beneath jasmine-draped beams. The bottle lanterns above them glow softly, clear, green, amber, like blossoms forever caught in the golden hour. They speak quietly over warm tea, their voices floating upward with the scent of flowers and the soft creak of wood. This is what happens when trash becomes light, when waste is no longer unwanted, and when creativity blooms where no one thought to plant it. So let the night fall. You've already made it beautiful. In the hush of early morning, when the sun is still soft and shadows stretch gently across the soil, this little corner of the garden begins to glow. Not from expensive materials or manicured perfection, but from humble bottles, turned upside down, lined like silent guardians around the beds. Each one was once tossed aside. A water bottle, a soda container, a glass vessel left behind. But here, buried neck-first into the soil, they've become something more, a repeating rhythm of shape and shine, edging the garden like a handmade song. In one bed, the bottles are green and translucent, catching morning light and casting emerald shadows on the black earth below. Within the border, basil and butterhead lettuce grow in full, loose spirals. Marigolds punctuate the rows like tiny bursts of fire. A watering can rests in the corner, still beaded with droplets from yesterday's tending. Along the fence line, the edges change tone, blue and clear bottles alternate like waves, their surfaces kissed by sun and soil alike. Cosmos and calendula bloom behind them in joyful color, and beside the bed, a pair of gardening gloves lies dusted with fallen petals. It's the kind of quiet mess that only comes from real work and real joy. Elsewhere, in the back bed, the bottles darken. Amber glass, some frosted with age, curves around a tangle of cherry tomatoes, mint, and chard. The vegetables reach proudly toward the light, their leaves crisp with dew, bees hovering lazily nearby. The border arcs slightly, not quite perfect, but perfect in its intention. This garden doesn't ask for approval. It simply offers a new way to see waste. A new way to mark space. A new way to say, this place is loved. Because when we place value on what others discard, we don't just grow food. We grow meaning. One bottle at a time. In a quiet corner of the yard where lavender hums with bees and the scent of soil lingers on the breeze, someone decided not to toss the drums into the landfill. Instead, they picked up a brush, sawed through steel, and gave the barrels a second life, not as waste, but as comfort. The red bench under the pergola, bold and unapologetically vibrant, feels like an exclamation mark amid the calm greens of raised beds. The oil drums, once utilitarian, forgotten, now cradle thick slats of reclaimed wood. A pair of garden boots leans nearby, and a trail of sun spills onto the bench seat, where someone might pause after pruning tomatoes or just to listen to the wind. It's not perfect, but it's deeply human. Made with what was at hand. Made with care. Further along the path, the same concept takes on a more refined charm. The olive green version is softened by cushions in plaid and a blanket folded with thoughtfulness. Here, in a gravel-lined garden corner, the drum bench isn't just functional, it's cozy. A crate of basil and zinnias seems to smile beside it, leaves basking in late afternoon light. The holes drilled into the drum sides, originally for aeration, now give the bench a sculptural character. Practicality becomes poetry. And then, there's the navy bench, resting in a field of lavender like a boat anchored in bloom. Slight rust along the drum's edge whispers of past lives, of work, of wear, of survival. A book lies open on the bench, mid-sentence, as if someone stepped away to fetch tea and never returned. The wood, worn but strong, tells stories of old fences or decks that once stood proud. Each of these benches was born from the same idea, that trash can become treasure when shaped by imagination and time. If you've got old barrels and a bit of heart, you've got the start of something beautiful. You don't need to buy serenity. You just need to build it. Sometimes, the most poetic gardens begin with rain. Old umbrellas, once guardians of stormy walks and misty commutes, now hang like open wings, offering shade, form, and unexpected life. This is not just a garden. It's a quiet rebellion against waste, a gentle reclaiming of what we thought had no place anymore. The first image captures the charm of transformation in its purest form. An upside-down blue umbrella, mounted on a post, blooming not with forgotten raindrops, but thyme, mint, and dill. Each herb nestles into a pocket of soil inside the frame, carefully labeled with handwritten wooden tags. The structure is suspended like a garden chandelier, airy and imaginative. Look closely and you'll see the soft sunlight catching the curled tips of dill, the fuzzy texture of oregano leaves, and the faint rust on the old umbrella ribs, reminders of both age and endurance. A watering can sits nearby, as if waiting its turn to nourish this suspended microcosm of green. In the second scene, we step into a narrow backyard wall where 6 black umbrellas stretch across a trellis like blooming garden fans. The fabric has been swapped for breathable netting, allowing airflow while cradling pots of rosemary, oregano, and parsley. Their curved handles anchor into wooden slats, creating a grid of flavor and fragrance on the wall. No part of this design is fussy, it's clever, elegant, and completely doable with just a drill, a trellis, and some hooks. What once was tossed aside after a rainstorm now serves up a symphony of herbs beneath the open sky. And in the third moment, perhaps the most intimate, we see a trio of umbrellas lined with coconut fiber, leaning against a short backyard fence. They're bursting with basil, sage, and chives so vibrant you can almost smell them through the screen. A few bees hover nearby, drawn to the promise of blossoms yet to come. The whole setup feels humble and earthy. Terracotta tiles peek out from behind, grounding the space in quiet Mediterranean texture. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to grow. Practical tips, hidden in plain sight. If you attempt this at home, seek out umbrellas with sturdy ribs and handles. Line them with coconut coir or mesh to support drainage, and secure them well against wind. Herbs thrive in small pockets. Choose varieties that like partial sun and can be picked often. Don't overthink symmetry, let it feel a little wild. The beauty here lies not in pristine lines, but in the freedom to reuse, replant, and reimagine. Because when it comes to gardens born from trash, the rain might end, but the growth has only just begun. It starts with a jug, empty, forgotten, tossed beneath the kitchen sink or left beside a recycling bin with little purpose beyond disposal. But in hands that see stories where others see waste, even the most ordinary plastic can bloom into wonder. Along the sun-dappled path of a humble garden, those forgotten jugs now stand proud, painted in soft whites, earthy browns, sunset oranges, and cheerful pastels. Each one a canvas, each one a quiet declaration that beauty doesn't need to be expensive, only noticed. The first path curves gently beneath the arch of lavender and coneflowers, where upcycled jugs become a living border. Some were hand-painted daisies and cosmos, others display earthy textures and warm hues. There's a rhythm to their shapes and colors, like an old storybook brought to life along the ground. Each jug is flipped, cut, and placed just so, hugging the stones with a childlike charm. The imperfections aren't flaws, they're signatures of time, effort, and love. This is not factory perfect, it's soul perfect. In another corner of a tiny backyard, the look is cleaner, crisper. The jugs are brushed with whitewash, topped with floral illustrations that feel lifted from a country recipe book. They sit snugly between tufts of moss, cabbage blooms, and hardy pansies, forming a scalloped line like lace along the earth. Nearby, a garden gnome keeps quiet company, and a greenhose curls like a lazy snake beneath the hedge. This border isn't just decor, it's a portrait of someone who kneels down often, pulls weeds by hand, and smiles when new leaves unfurl. And then, a burst of color. Bold coral, butter yellow, icy blue, each jug lined up beneath a wooden fence like bright bottles of paint in a child's art box. Marigolds and daisies spill over the top, blending natural blooms with plastic forms in a way that's both absurd and delightful. The brush strokes are visible, the finish matte, and the sunlight casts shadows that dance like passing clouds. It's playful. It's practical. And it reminds us that color is one of the cheapest ways to shift a mood, to bring laughter to a tired yard. There's a lesson buried beneath the dirt and plastic here. Transformation doesn't need money, just time, a little paint, and a heart willing to look twice. What was once trash now keeps the soil in place, guides footsteps along a path, and makes neighbors pause with a smile. So, if you have an old jug lying around, don't toss it. Flip it. Cut it. Paint it. Line it with love. You might just frame your whole garden with joy. There's something quietly magical about a garden that doesn't try to be perfect, only honest. In the hush of early morning, when the sun gently brushes the edges of a narrow patio, two tall clay-painted drums stand like sentinels. These are old drygens, plastic containers once used for oil, now reborn with purpose. Their tops have been sliced cleanly open, filled with dark, damp soil, and planted with bursts of calendula and wild grasses that sway slightly in the breeze. Each one is cradled inside a bamboo cage, the kind tied with hand-wrapped rope knots, where every piece tells of patience and care. The bamboo is sun-washed and imperfect, just like the stones beneath it, and behind them rests a simple garden stool and a well-used watering can, hinting at the rhythm of hands that tend this place each day. Step into the larger yard and you'll find the story unfolding further. Rows of old blue drums, halved and reborn, stand in neat grids wrapped in bamboo fencing, each one planted with something edible, something green, something hopeful. Basil, lettuce, and cherry tomatoes grow thick and wild, their leaves glistening with morning dew. Here, the plastic's faded blue meets the warmth of natural bamboo, and somehow the mix feels timeless. Just beyond, the gravel walk crunches softly underfoot, leading to a trellis wall where square planters, once dull containers, now sing in tones of mustard, rust, and sage. Zinnias bloom freely from their centers, herbs spill gently over the sides, and butterflies float between the gaps in the lattice. No part of this garden tries to impress, yet it comforts deeply. It is a space born of reuse, of human hands working with what they had, of finding harmony in forgotten things. For anyone watching, this is not about luxury. It's about honesty. If you have a couple of plastic drums, some bamboo poles, rope, and a handful of seeds, this beauty is within reach. Begin with one planter. Watch it grow. Let it tell your story next. There's something humbling about building beauty out of what the world leaves behind. In this quiet side garden, where space is tight and every inch is a treasure, old plastic bottles have found a new rhythm, reborn not as waste, but as gentle arches of support for living things that climb and bloom. Along the narrow corridor, repurposed bottles, sliced into translucent rings, are woven together with twine like soft raindrops caught mid-fall. These simple chains dangle with care between garden stakes and walls, forming vertical trellises that glow softly when the sun leans in. The way the light dances through them, blue, green, and hints of smoky amber, feels like stained glass crafted by time and patience. Nasturtiums twine upward with joyous disorder, their cheerful orange faces tilting toward the light. Tiny tendrils reach, curl, and cling, thankful for a structure that doesn't just hold them, but celebrates them. Between the pots, herbs rustle gently in the breeze, mint, basil, and a few sprigs of rosemary, adding fragrance to the bloom-splashed walls. Fallen petals dot the brick path like confetti from a silent celebration. At the corner of the raised bed, a miniature trellis leans into the soil. Bottles in hues of sea glass green and cobalt blue form a zigzag dance within a bamboo frame. Vines curl slowly toward the sky, guided by lines that once held soda and water, now serving something quieter, more vital. And beneath it all, the truth, that with nothing more than scissors, twine, and time, you can turn trash into a scaffold for life. It doesn't take money. It doesn't need perfection. Just your two hands, a bit of soil, and the decision to see potential where others see waste. Let your garden whisper that story. In the quiet hours of morning, before the sun climbs too high, the garden speaks in softened tones. Here, in the smallest of spaces, upcycled umbrellas rise like whimsical sentinels, silent protectors for delicate leaves and blooms. Each one, once discarded and forgotten, now stands repurposed as gentle canopies that shield and charm. What once guarded against rain now offers refuge from the summer heat. In the first scene, a dainty pastel green umbrella opens its arms over a mosaic of tiny life. Calendulas bloom like miniature suns, alyssum spills like lace over the soil, and strawberries ripen in secret beneath the shade. Around them, a simple stone bench invites quiet contemplation, while a watering can rests patiently nearby. Everything about this vignette feels like a whisper, humble, handmade, and intentional. Just beyond, a row of larger umbrellas lines a tidy backyard path. Their weather-worn fabrics stretch like sails between bamboo poles, creating a tunnel of dappled light over leafy greens. Below, the earth is dark and generous, and every seedling seems to lean toward the shadows in gratitude. Vines climb the poles slowly, curling upward with hope. The umbrellas don't just shade, they sculpt the space, turning a vegetable row into a serene, living corridor. And tucked in a cozy corner near a block wall, two vintage umbrellas bloom again, this time with hand-painted florals. Their soft patterns echo the colors of the begonias below, while cilantro and lettuce tuck themselves into the cool spaces they provide. Sunlight peeks through, casting leaf shadows that dance on the stone path like memory. This is the beauty of the humble umbrella, elevated not by its cost, but by your imagination. It's proof that even a cast-off frame can hold a new kind of shelter. So if you've ever found an old umbrella too lovely to toss, consider this: maybe your garden has been waiting for a little shade, and a little poetry. There's something quietly joyful about walking through a garden where every step tells a story, not just of plants and seasons, but of human hands and discarded things made beautiful again. In the first garden, the stones are round like stepping moons, laid gently between neat rows of herbs and leafy vegetables. Embedded in each are bottle caps, red, teal, and weathered white, arranged in patterns that resemble pinwheels, petals, and bursts of summer confetti. Sunlight touches their glossy surfaces while shadows from the kale leaves spill across the earth. It's humble and brilliant at once. A pathway not bought, but built, one cap at a time. Farther on, the scene changes. The paving stones here are square, and someone, maybe a child or a weekend dreamer, has pressed caps into careful grids. Checkerboards of color, spirals that hint at play, and quiet bursts of symmetry lead the eye past daisies in bloom. Beside the path, a polka-dotted pair of rain boots and a watering can suggest the gardener isn't far. This space feels personal, like a patchwork quilt for your feet, stitched with plastic memories. And then comes the final path. A cracked dirt walkway bordered by lavender and bricks painted in bright playground hues. At the forefront, a single concrete stone carries a message in colored caps: grow. It's not just a call for the plants. It's a reminder for us to grow beyond waste, to grow in creativity, and to grow toward something more hopeful. Bees buzz above the lavender like tiny guardians of the message, and every shadow feels alive. Practical tips hidden in plain sight. These paths were made with concrete molds, buckets or basins will do. The caps were pressed in before the mix dried, smooth just enough to be even underfoot. No special skills required, only patience, and maybe a bit of joy in collecting what others might throw away. Each design is unique, each cap a memory turned mosaic. Sometimes, transformation isn't about grandeur. It's about noticing what you already have, beneath your sink, in your recycling bin, behind your fence, and making something lasting, something joyful, something that tells your garden, I see you, I made this for you, and for us. As the last golden blush of the evening slips beyond the hedge line, the garden begins to speak in light. These aren't just ordinary barrels. Once forgotten, dented drums once destined for the junkyard now stand proud, reborn as evening guardians, lanterns of warmth, of memory, of gentle joy. In the hush of twilight, they glow like captured fireflies. One of them stands tall in the corner of a small urban patio, matte black, modest, celestial. Carved crescent moons and simple stars flicker softly from the gentle light within, casting long shadows against the bamboo fencing behind. Terracotta planters brim with mint and marigolds, their foliage dancing in the low glow. A rustic bench sits nearby, weathered by seasons, waiting for someone to sit and sip a quiet thought beneath the rising dusk. Elsewhere, two taller lanterns stretch upward like blooming stems beside a wrought iron cafe table. Delicate floral cutouts bloom in the metal, scattering golden patterns over the bricks below. Lavender, rosemary, oregano, each planted in their humble clay pots, bask in the spill of light like they, too, are drawn to the warmth. The metal edges catch firelight like old coins rubbed clean, and the light within breathes steady and kind. And in a backyard ringed with low chairs and deep cushions, 3 barrels stand around a fire like storytellers in council. One bears the dance of leaves. Another swirls in spirals. The last flutters with butterflies in flight. Their painted bodies, copper, black, and burnished gold, reflect the flicker of the fire pit at the center. It's a scene of friendship, of laughter, of marshmallows and silence, where the only sound is crackling wood and the occasional breath of breeze. If you have an old oil drum, don't look through it, look into it. Imagine the stories it could tell, the light it could give, the beauty it could offer again. A saw, a pattern, a warm bulb, and a bit of care, that's all it takes. Not just to decorate a patio, but to light up a life with something once forgotten. Let these lanterns remind you, even discarded things can shine again. There's something profoundly calming about the gentle sound of water, a soft rhythm that seems to hush the world outside the fence. In one quiet corner of a modest patio, an ember bucket, once forgotten in a shed, finds new life as a fountain. Its surface, hand-painted in terracotta hues, is speckled with marks of age and utility. Smooth pebbles rest like riverbed memories across the top, catching sunlight as water bubbles from a simple stone spout. From a bamboo pipe, a graceful arc flows downward, reaching toward pots of basil, thyme, and oregano. It's not grand, but it feels sacred, because every drop is thoughtful. In another corner, painted matte black, a second bucket installation tells a different story. Here, gravity becomes art. A humble 2-tier system trickles water downward, the bamboo spouts echoing ancient Japanese garden designs. Tiny marigolds bloom beside crisp lettuce, cradled in soil softened by the touch of falling water. Moss hugs the base, drinking in the moisture, while droplets glisten like glass beads along the rim. There is no power cord, No hum, only balance, gravity, and care. And somehow, in its quiet simplicity, it inspires more than any store-bought garden feature could. And then, bathed in golden light, a stacked system of painted white buckets becomes a portrait of modern rustic charm. The upper vessel, brushed with deep green streaks and fitted with a solar-powered valve, trickles water with precision onto mint and spinach below. Rope trim gives the setup a crafted, nautical touch. It's not just about watering plants, it's about building something that works, that gives, that lives alongside you. Each ember pot tells a different story, but they all begin with the same question: what can I build with what I already have? So maybe, today, that old bucket isn't just a bucket. Maybe it's a fountain. A tiny spring. A quiet beginning. In one quiet corner of the garden, where the ivy folds like old velvet along the fence and bees hum their stories on the wind, something unexpected rises, a playful burst of imagination blooming from forgotten things. At first glance, it might seem like a delicate metal sculpture, a floral crown suspended in midair. But look closer and you'll see the bones of an old umbrella, ribs carefully bent upward like skeletal wings, now reborn as a whimsical trellis of light and color. Where raindrops once slid, now bright daisies open wide, each petal cut from painted plastic bottles, their centers glowing with warm, hand-brushed yellows. Bottle caps, melted and repurposed, sparkle as cheerful suns. And just beyond this centerpiece, a fan of wild blossoms, zinnias, bee balm, and painted metal sunflowers, clash in a symphony of summer hues. Their presence isn't accidental. They were chosen, nurtured, and planted to support this unlikely installation. The bees come willingly. The breeze joins too, nudging the bottle flowers to sway gently, catching and scattering sunlight like garden confetti. The project began, perhaps, with a single broken umbrella destined for the trash. But someone saw a new shape in its spine, a skeleton of possibility. They gathered old plastic bottles, trimmed them with kitchen scissors, added acrylic paint, and pressed wire through the petals. One by one, the flowers grew, handmade, imperfect, but blooming with character. No blueprint was needed. Just observation, imitation, and a little modification. In a world that often celebrates perfection, this garden celebrates play. Nothing here is polished. Every twist of metal and every brushstroke feels human. Real. It invites you to try too, not with perfect tools or expensive supplies, but with whatever waits in your own forgotten corners. Because with patience and joy, even trash can bloom. And perhaps that's the magic. It's not just a garden decor piece, it's a story of transformation that dances with the bees, and quietly inspires anyone passing by to see beauty where others see waste.